Hi everyone, welcome back once again to Found the One Piece. It's Carlos here and Smiley here. We're going to be discussing today kind of a special off-script video. We're going to be discussing our thoughts of a possible confrontation that might or might not occur in One Piece in the future, and that would be Luffy fighting Marine Fleet Admiral Akainu. And so we'll both be discussing whether we think it will happen and why or not, and we'll take it from there. So do you want to begin, or do you want me to start?
I'll go ahead and start. I'll take on that burden. So when it comes to Luffy and Akainu, at this point, I definitely believe Luffy could at least throw his hat in the ring to defeat Akainu. And if he defeats Kaido, that solidifies it for me, right? But the question that I'm trying to get at is, will Luffy defeat Akainu, or is there bigger fish to fry? And as you mentioned off screen, would Sabo take down Kaido? Not Kaido, I'm sorry, Akainu.
Yeah, so I think that you're more interested in the particular direction where this story is headed, because Luffy having to have a direct confrontation and fight with Akainu would mean that the story is heading for a direction where the world government, and specifically the Navy, might be a kind of a villain or a last antagonist in the story. Whereas if we head in another direction where the Navy is not necessarily the last antagonist, there wouldn't really be a need for Luffy to directly fight Akainu, because he would be focused on something else. And of course, that's hard to answer because we don't know all the specifics about the One Piece yet and stuff like that. But what I believe is right now, as of today, is that the Navy won't necessarily be the final antagonist per se. They will definitely be part of the final war, of course. But they are not necessarily the final boss, as it might be. I think the final boss is the world government, and in my second possibility for the last one would be Blackbeard, but none of those are necessarily either Akainu or the Navy. So that's why I don't necessarily think that. I think Luffy and Akainu will definitely fight, and I think it's a moment that the fans we want to see how Luffy measures up to the admirals and the fleet admiral, but I don't think that means that he would need to defeat Akainu in order for the progression of the story to move on. So that's where I draw the line. I see it as they will have a clash, but it will not be Luffy's opponent. So that's what
Can you give more information on what you feel like the clash between Luffy and Akainu will look like?
Let's see. I think it would look a lot like one clash that Whitebeard had at some point with Aokiji, perhaps. So, for example, during the Marineford War, so Whitebeard caused a tsunami, Aokiji froze the tsunami. Then some chapters later, Akainu tried to fight or stop Whitebeard, who was going to save Ace, and it was a nice, pretty even confrontation where Aokiji ended up freezing the Whitebeard spear, and Whitebeard thrust it inside, but Akainu was able to maneuver around it. But at the end of the day, they got separated because Daimon Jozu interrupted the fight. Or Marco. I think they had like two clashes. So one was interrupted by Marco, and the other one was interrupted by Jozu. So what I believe is if they had continued fighting, then Whitebeard would have won that one-on-one. But they didn't, because Aokiji was just not that guy. It was not his job. I think it was the commander's job to deal with that admiral at that moment. So I think that will be what will happen. We will have that same scenario. Luffy, for example, I don't know. I'm just gonna use this as an example. What is going to destroy Marijua, and he's going to destroy the Red Line. However, all the admirals try to stop him, and I think maybe the Revolutionary Army would be there, and then Sabo will intercede and be like, "No, you're not gonna fight my brother. You're gonna fight me, because I took on Ace's will, and I'll get revenge, or I'll avenge his death." So I think that's kind of how it's playing on my mind, but there's a lot of white spaces there still there.
So what you're saying is that Luffy would be Whitebeard.
Yeah.
And Ali would be Akainu.
Yeah.
Okay. So how many tiers above Akainu would you place Luffy if he defeats Kaido?
Well, if I assume Akainu is exactly as strong right now as he was back then,
bad assumption.
Yeah, if I assume that, then I would say I don't think Akainu and the Yonko are that different in terms of power. They're all top 10 fighters in the verse. So maybe a slight tier below the Yonko, but very close. And with 2 years having gone by, I don't think we can assume that Akainu is any weaker than any Yonko right now. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I think a fight between Akainu and any Yonko would go the full length, even if I end up putting the Yonko as a victor.
Gotcha. See, I personally disagree.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I do respect when you said that the admirals are like one tier below the Yonko, right?
Yeah.
But that's just because they're the closest to the Yonko. That doesn't mean that they are close to the Yonko, if that makes sense. Because I'm looking at Whitebeard, and he was severely injured. He was sick, and he still put Akainu through the ringer. And I also am hesitant to put Sabo at Yonko level. And I completely agree with your theory that Sabo will be the one to take down Akainu. Mm-hmm. See, from my perspective, the world government isn't the final boss at all. By the time we get to the final boss, the world government will be completely destroyed or remade. And kind of similar to a Sasuke and Naruto versus Kaguya. I know all of our fans might not watch Naruto, but the two quote unquote main characters of the series teamed up to fight this bad villain, right? Yeah. And then the two main characters fought to decide the future of the world. So from that perspective, I feel as though Luffy's gonna be crying and all types of stuff, but I feel like Luffy, at the very least, will leverage Blackbeard's presence, or Blackbeard leverages Luffy's presence, and they take down Im-sama together. Okay. Right? Like I'm of the mind state that Im-sama is leagues above the Yonko, and after Im-sama's defeat, I feel as though Luffy and Blackbeard will clash to decide the future of the world. What side of the Will of D will we see? And I think that's important because from that perspective, Luffy has way bigger fish to fry than Akainu. On top of Oda's frequency of handicapping Luffy before a big fight, right? Yeah. But I definitely love your theory about Sabo taking out Akainu. It'll just mind blow my appreciation. Like if we have any math people out there, exponential.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned some interesting things that are kind of a different version of what I think might happen. So of course anything can happen, but some of the things that I would envision happening is that right now we have like 4 different powers, or 5, so the world government and the Navy, which you can consider together or separate. For the moment, I'm going to simplify them and consider them together, at least for the time being. We have Luffy, of course, and his probably Blackbeard, which is going to be, seems to be the next most important pirate. And then we have the revolutionaries. So 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 4. So what I think might happen at some point is that when we learn whatever the One Piece is, I think Luffy and Blackbeard will have different interpretations of what needs to be done next. And depending what those interpretations are, then Luffy and all of his allied countries and the Grand Fleet and everybody will go against everybody else who is not on their side. What I believe will happen is that Blackbeard will be on the other side. I just don't know who will be with Blackbeard. I think maybe the Navy might be with our side, which would be a weird plot twist. But I think it may come to the point that the Navy is on our side and the world government and Blackbeard are on the other. But I can also see the revolutionaries being on our side against the Navy and Blackbeard and all that. And I think I am leaning towards that side better, because that would mean that we would get a lot of people who can deal with admirals, with Akainu on the revolutionaries. Sabo already, scrapped against some Navy admirals on Marijua on the Reverie. So I think it's I think the Blackbeard pirates are not necessarily going to team up honorably with the Navy and the world government, but they will be wanting the same thing. So it's similar to Marineford, where Blackbeard kind of shows up in the end and reaps his rewards. I think the Navy and the world government will be going up against Luffy and the revolutionaries, and then Blackbeard will try to take advantage of that. And that actually might be a nice place where Sabo can interrupt Luffy's and Akainu's fight for Luffy to go ahead or the Straw Hats to go ahead and face the Blackbeard pirates, which would end up being the Navy versus the revolutionaries, and then Luffy versus the Blackbeard pirates, which makes a lot of sense.
So you're of the opinion that there will not be any even semblance of an alliance between the Straw Hats and the Blackbeard pirates?
No, I don't think so. I think I think they're too perfectly matched against each other, like Luffy versus Blackbeard, Usopp versus the other sniper.
I mean, it appears that Blackbeard knows something about the future, about destiny, I can't put my thumb on it. I can put my pinky on it, and I feel like he's anticipating fighting Luffy, because if we just reflect on when he first heard that Luffy was considered a Yonko, he didn't say that was impossible. He said it was too soon.
Yeah.
So he recognizes Luffy's haki since day one, and it appears he recognizes Luffy's place in the future. But I see where we disagree, because you think it's gonna be like an all-out war, and I think that will happen. Don't get me wrong, but when it comes to Im-sama, I want to go on the record and say Luffy and Blackbeard will fight them together.
Okay, that can totally happen. Regarding Im-sama, I think he might be immortal because of the lost devil fruit, the ultimate sacrificing surgery that grants you eternal life. So I've heard people discuss that a lot before. So whether there has to be someone in the world government that has had that operation, that's how they know about it. So I think that Im-sama might not be very strong physically, but he might be immortal, and that is going to be the thing that they have to overcome somehow. So.
That's deep. That's deep. Let's end it on that note. That's really deep though. Im-sama might be immortal. I didn't even. Wow, that's deep. But yeah, we don't want to take too much of your time, audience. So check back with us for the next video if you want to hear more.
Yeah. See you guys.